nature is, it's home, it's who I am, it's who we all are. This journey from, growing up almost in opposition to nature. The whole exercise was really about keeping nature out, whether it was with the ant killer or the bug spray or all the sort of windows and door. I understand that that's all perfectly reasonable and all the rest of it, but it left me feeling quite disconnected from it, and I didn't know what I didn't know about how important nature was to me until I had this really beautiful opportunity to spend time, and quite regularly over about 15 years now, in wilderness here in India, a particular place called Hampi, and I think it's I feel so blessed to have these opportunities, because what I see is that every time I sort of land there, first of all, it takes time to really kind of come down in a way from life and the busyness and the activity, and nature requires, I think, stillness and silence to be able to experience what its gifts really are. And because my soul is very drawn to those aspects of nature, of stillness and silence, I welcome those opportunities, and I realize that nature is constantly teaching, reflecting, expressing something which is an aspect of myself, and I just feel like a student of it, really, and a great beneficiary of it. And I think you said it beautifully the other day, it's like when you love something, it naturally cultivates your desire to care for it and to preserve it, and that's been very much my experience as well, that I feel like that nature has enabled me to come home to myself in a particular way that has brought me into right relationship with many aspects of my life, including the work that I do. And maybe that's sort of a segue to your next question, but I think, and I know it's been true for you too, that one of the things that happens, I think, for foreigners, especially when they first come to India, is it's just shocking how much pollution there is everywhere. And again, it's not to say that India's all dirty and we're all very clean in the West. We know that's not true. I think it's more hidden, and perhaps because we have a bit less human land ratio. Here the density is really a big factor, I think. So it's everywhere. You see this garbage, and plastic in particular, and I think that was sort of one of the most shocking things that first struck me when I reached this country. So I began to sort of question all my behaviours around consumption and how much pollution I was generating and garbage I was generating through products and things that I bought. And one of the really obvious ones was around menstrual waste. And in fact, because I came to India about 20 odd years ago, so at that time there wasn't so much access to internet or knowledge about alternative products, but I did have a sort of lucky find to discover a cloth pad on a holiday in New Zealand. And it was just a washable menstrual pad, really, and I bought that, and it just had it changed my life. It really sounds like a big statement about a menstrual product, but it quite frankly did, because on the obvious level it tackled that sort of reuse, meant that I didn't keep having to single use and throw a menstrual product. Saved money, all of that. But I think what was the biggest discovery was that it connected me, I wouldn't even say reconnected, because I'd been fundamentally disconnected from not just my body, but especially I think my feminine incarnation of a body from birth. The body was kind of the enemy, and I grew up in a very Catholic culture, a lot of shame around the body and around sexuality and reproductive processes, so menstruation was just kind of part of that sort of milieu of the things that were somewhat rejected, but of course one had to just handle it, so it became the most functional thing, just use a product, get rid of it, keep it as quiet and as invisible as possible, and that was the name of the game. So to start using this reusable cloth, I started to find that just the process of washing and handling, this menstrual towel and handling my own menstrual blood was quite a profound experience. And it really made me realise the conditioning that I had of aversion to this menstrual blood, and it wasn't mine. It was something that I'd picked up in the culture, and that I realised that I was deeply conditioned to believe and hold this set of beliefs about. And when you do this washing and reusing, it felt something like something shifted. It became, it got into a right relationship actually with my menstruation, because I'm taking care of it now. I'm using, I'm washing, I'm handling it. I'm not passing on the waste for somebody else to deal with. And, and these cycles went on, month after month like that. So I personally got very excited about cloth pads. I thought it's a revolutionary and quite subversive little product, And so that actually was the birth of what's now this project that I do called EcoFemme. And, in the beginning years were just really personal. I was doing it for myself and making these pads for the women in the community of Oroville where I live. But at a certain point, I was working with an NGO where we were looking at sort of gender and women's issues and, health and sanitation, and also even livelihood came up as a really pressing need for the for the organisation. So this really prompted me to revisit this cloth pad thing and say, well, can this be converted into a livelihood project? Can we teach rural women to make these cloth pads? And given there was this, beginning, I would say, of a resurgence in interest for reusable menstrual products, which has been growing rapidly, I'd say, in the last 10 years. But it was just starting about 10 years ago. And so we just went for it and decided we'll try this out, try to get the products, create, first of all, a high quality menstrual cloth pad and market it ideally, to an affluent customer base internationally and in India. And with the profits and the income from that, to see how we could then put that towards non-profit work, which really ended up being around education for adolescent girls and also women as well, and providing free or cross-subsidised pads to make them affordable. So I think it's a product that's for everybody, really. And of course, in India we just have this massive issue of dealing with waste in general and sanitary waste in particular, because of the amount of plastics that are in the disposable products. Even that was rather unknown. Most people didn't even realise that these disposable pads are largely plastic and take about 500 to 800 years to sort of break down. So, all of that made a very compelling case to really try this out. So that's what, we did, and I have a team now that are working on this project. And, I think it's still it's not that it's easy to kind of create this shift, because there's a lot of suspicion. I mean, India's just now embracing the whole convenience of disposable pads. Pretty new for them still, so they can tend to think about going back to cloth as going back to the drudgery of washing, and there's a lot of pushback on that. I'd say even more so than your earlier question of the resistance to looking in. It's a very personal thing, but in culture here, I mean, menstruation's a big taboo, It's really the whole idea of impurity that's connected with the menstrual experience is so interwoven. So there's a lot of work to be done around examining how we think about this experience, kind of, in a way, I'd say normalising it, creating space for open conversation and reflection around some of these kind of cultural beliefs, and also how that gets translated into the desire to conceal it, deny it, which is conveniently met through these disposable products. So again, I think this product is actually a Trojan horse. It's an entry point into a much more interesting and richer conversation around women, our relationship to our bodies and to this life-giving process of which menstruation is really clearly part of. And that's pretty much what we're about, and it's beautiful.